So we have been well and truly hit by Storm Isha, and if you don't know, if you're not from the UK or you've been living under a rock recently, there's basically a severe weather warning out for 3 or 4 days related to a storm which is causing high winds, heavy rainfall and a little bit of carnage. And so this morning on the farm we came down to a little bit of chaos caused by the storm. It got up to about 60 miles an hour I think last night, and as a result this is what we found. So when I headed round to the stables this morning, this was the sight that I found. So this is the roof off of Danny's field shelter, and it had clearly come off, been picked up by the wind and then taken away. Now that is actually half of the roof in one piece. The other half had broken off and gone through Caramel's field and through her fencing and actually to the other side of the farm. That was how strong the winds were last night. And basically Danny's field shelter was barely standing up. So this is why you always put your horses away during a storm, because that's not meant to be there, and that could easily have killed one of the horses. Wow. And it's ripped through Caramel's field and taken some of the fencing out as well, so she'd have been in there. It's just not worth thinking about really. Yeah, that's a big, that is huge. I'll show you in comparison to me, but that's half of Danny's roof I believe. Well, actually like more than that, but I'll show you in a minute how huge a piece this is that's lifted off. Like, it's mental. And the rest of the structure's barely staying up, and we have another 3 days of 50-mile-an-hour winds. Jesus. It just doesn't bear thinking about the horses we're in, because Danny is always in his shelter. Oh my god. Yeah, that's not meant to be like that. So this all happened on the very first evening of Storm Isha, would you believe, and we actually have another 3 days to go of these severe weather warnings. So we are going to take every precaution we can, starting by we need to remove all of the debris from last night and remove all of this roofing out of the way and actually take down the field shelter. But first we're going to remove all of this and secure the paddocks so that the horses can go out. And let me tell you, this is mighty heavy. That's actually only half of the roof. The other half was the bit that went through Caramel's field. So yeah, we are actually so lucky that it didn't do any more damage than what it already has, because it is very heavy. So the winds must have been horrendous for this to have been ripped off. And of course, all the 7 horses were in the stables, which is a big which is a big brick indoor building in the barn, so they were all safe. But we also have pigs, chickens, goats on the farm, so we checked them all this morning, and thankfully everyone is absolutely fine and there's no further damage. The chicken fencing needs a little bit of patching up where a few posts have come out, but that's quite simple to do. There's always things like this and maintenance on the farm, but never to this degree. It really was like a shocker this morning how much we had to do. But yeah, first step was basically just remove all of the debris and see where we were at in terms of the rest of the field shelter. So that's what the field shelter is meant to look like. And that's what it currently looks like. So we're turning the horses out. They can go out. Danny's going in this half. Of his paddock, and then because we've got 3 more days of this storm, so we're going to take that down today, which will probably take all day because that is concreted in, but the chance of that going through a fence as this wind starts getting up again is pretty high, and I definitely don't want anyone getting injured, so that's coming down today. So as this has definitely got to come down, me and Dad soon realised that we've got quite a big issue here. As soon as we unscrew the walls, of which there are 3, they are going to collapse. There's nothing holding them up anymore. They are concreted in, but it was mainly the roof actually holding up the structure, which isn't ideal, because if you are on the wrong side of that and the wind grabs it and it goes, you are smushed. There is no two ways about it. And as you can see, we are on clay, so our fields are seriously churned up because this is by the gateway. It's very deep, it's very hard to move quickly. There is basically no quick escape. So what we decided is we needed some wood to prop up the side to try and ensure we didn't get squished when it fell over. So that was my job, to sort out the wood and then start taking away the sides basically. So apart from not being structurally sound anymore, the condition of the walls is actually pretty good. So we're going to try and just kind of like lay each one down so that we can get them back up eventually when we rebuild the shelter. And this went pretty well, although it took a little bit of persuasion, but we finally got one side down and then we were absolutely away. We got the other sides down quite quickly. And actually these were made in situ, so they are literally one gigantic piece really. You can't, unless you start taking every single board off, get them down any other way. So once we've got them down, also what is that walk Georgia trying to get through the mud, it was then the issue of getting these gigantic pieces out of the gate, which A, is literally so muddy and so deep that you can barely walk, but also they are so heavy and there's nothing really to grab onto because it is literally just a giant side of stable basically. But we did manage to get the first one out, and then it was on to the trailer, onto like, this is actually our muck trailer, but the flatbed wasn't in use, so we were like, this is just gonna have to do. And luckily between us, we managed it quite easily. This was a side piece and we kind of didn't really think about how heavy the back was going to be because that's actually much bigger. So this looked really, really easy to begin with. And then it just all kind of went downhill. We were all dropping stuff and falling in the mud. Mum like gave up and just left me, and I just ended up getting my welly stuck. Dad found it absolutely hilarious. Thank goodness I was wearing my 3 Donkeys overalls, because honestly I would have been so annoyed if I was in my riding gear. These overalls literally are a lifesaver in winter. If you don't have them, you need them. But yeah, and then it was back onto the job with my mud covered rear to get the final bits on. And if you ever wondered to yourself, how many people does it take to dismantle a field shelter? The answer is 4. It takes 4 people. And about 2 hours is what it took us in the end, by the time we'd actually got it all down and put it all away. So because this is going back up, we've just stored it on the flatbed trailer that's not in use at the other side of the stables. But yeah, 1 field shelter removed and not going to cause us any issues in Storm Isha, thankfully. So this is where the field shelter was, and this is the result of today's hard work. As you can see, the field shelter and everything has completely gone. You'd actually never knew it was there. All the other horses' field shelters are luckily still standing, and we have checked all of the roofs and the structures and everything, but honestly in these winds you just do not know what could happen. We've checked all the fencing, we've checked all the roofs, we've checked pretty much everything. So hopefully tomorrow morning we won't have any issues, but as I say, you never know. So all of the horses are now back in the stables because we've actually brought them in for the evening, as we normally do around 3:30. So it did in fact take us several hours to get that field shelter down. A lot of falling in the mud, a lot of near squash experiences, but luckily, you know, fingers crossed, that is the end of it. Be sure to check your fields, guys, before you turn out this week, because it is pretty bad. And I am fully aware that obviously here in the UK, these 60-70 mph winds are nothing compared to like hurricanes and tornadoes and everything that some of you guys have to put up with in other countries, but this to us is quite a big deal. So yeah, it's just been a little bit chaotic today. I am so done with winter. I have had enough of winter. Roll on summer. So obviously storms happen, things get blown down, you know, it's quite common for such things to occur. But if you're wondering sort of how to look after your horses and keep them safe in these conditions, here are my tips. So my biggest one is, if your horses are used to a routine, don't change your routine, don't cause unnecessary stress in that situation. If your horses live out, then keep them out. Just make sure you're checking fencing first thing in the morning, last thing at night, etc, etc. If they do have field shelters, just ensure that they are structurally sound, as was, it just had a weakness on the roof, which obviously we didn't know about. And just make sure they've got plenty of space so that if anything goes wrong, they can get out of the situation. And I'd just say I'd check fencing really often. Or if you have horses in wooden stables, I know some people don't like wooden stables because obviously the same thing can happen as what happened with my field shelter with a stable, and if your horse was locked in it, it'd be a very sad story. So 6 of my horses are in the brick barn behind us. I'll show you those guys in a minute. And Caramel is outside in our stable, that's the wooden one. So of course she is at sort of a greater risk, I suppose, of the storm. However, this has been structurally made. It's got inlets and outlets for wind so that nothing's gonna, like, you know, lift it up or anything. It's on a concrete base, a complete concrete base, and it is attached all the way around with brickwork. So yeah, they are just a few things you can do. So as I said, Caramel is outside in the world's biggest stable for an 11-hand pony, like literally. It is ridiculous, but she's the only one who will stay outside on her own without stressing, so that's why she's out here. To be fair, this is like a paddock for Cara. But all of my horses always come in on the night in winter. We have been bringing them in slightly earlier due to the increased wind, just because ours don't really fly about in the field, but if they did, obviously increased chance of injury. But that's little Caramello. And then in the stables are all the very antisocial, apart from Taffy, horses. They're actually all eating, which is the reason they're not talking to us this evening. So first up we have Miss Snippy, Miss Snippadoos. Hello, gorgeous girl. So she is one that obviously I wouldn't recommend riding in storm weather, but she genuinely doesn't care about the wind. I have actually ridden her in gale force winds once when I got stuck out hacking, and she did not bother. And then there's Miss Lucy Lou. So Lucy is obviously not clipped, so she doesn't have a rug on, hence the muddy head from today and being in the field and getting all dirty. Lulu actually had a physio appointment, when was it? Last week, and she's coming back into work, which is super exciting. Mr. Chili. So Chili likes any excuse to gallop around your field, don't you, Chill? So he has been doing that recently, hence the mud on him. Yes, you're very naughty. And then we got little Taff. Hello, you're very dirty. You've definitely been rolling a lot today. Oh my goodness, look at that mane. Definitely gonna need to give you a good old groom after this storm. There's literally no point grooming them when I know we've got another 3 days of rain and wind though, is there? No. Hello, Dan. And this is Danny, so if anyone doesn't know, that was his shelter that went down today. And bless him, he absolutely loves his shelter. He actually spends pretty much all of his time in there in winter, so he'll be very sad that he doesn't have a shelter. So we are actually hoping to rebuild the shelter quite soon. My horse box is in for a few sort of repairs at the minute, so we can't actually go and get the wood for a new shelter. Hello, kisses. He's just licking my hand. So yeah, we can't actually go get the wood for a new shelter, which is why we didn't just kind of like reinforce it today and why we took it all down, because we don't have a car big enough basically to fit the long bits of wood in. Dan, you're seriously just licking my hand. Well, don't lick my head. Whereas normally we use the horse box to lug big things about, don't we? but we will rebuild it. We'll probably rebuild it when the weather's a bit nicer. Certainly when there's no wind, and hopefully when the ground's sort of dried up a little bit. Saying that, he'll probably sulk, and we'll end up doing it next week in like muddy conditions. But yes, luckily you weren't in there when it went down. And then last but certainly not least, we have Mr. Percy Pig. What do you think? Percy isn't a very big fan of wind, are you, my boy? No, you don't like the wind. He gets a bit more stressy with wind, don't you? So he has his calming cookies. But Percy's doing really well. Oh, he likes his head scratches, don't you? And he started actually really enjoying coming in on a night, whereas before he'd stand in the field and sort of be like, don't really want to come in. Whereas now, I think they're coming in a little bit later, so I think we brought them in about 4 o'clock today. Because now it's not getting dark until 4:30, so we're slowly pushing it back as the days get lighter and longer. And Percy seems to have been quite happy with that. I didn't like it when he had to come in at 3 o'clock when it was getting dark so early. But yeah, so that's all the horses. But as I say, I'm just very, very grateful and thankful that they are all okay. That we've not had any injuries courtesy of Storm Isha, and I hope you guys have a safe few days as well. Let me know in the comments if you've been affected by it, or whether you get storms where you are and what they're like, how you deal with them. And yeah, I will see you all very soon for another video. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See you soon, guys. Bye.